Where are you right now? Are you standing in the checkout line at the grocery store? Maybe you're in the doctor's office or waiting to load a plane for a fantastic vacation. Now take a second to look around. Focus in on all the females that are standing or waiting with you. Did you know that 1 out of every 4 of these beautiful women have been a victim of domestic violence sometime in their life? The number sounds alarming, does it not? Hard to believe that your next holiday family gathering, that one of your sisters, aunts, or even your mother was or is a victim of this ever-growing problem in the United States. There are many forms of violence, but they usually all have the same pattern in the same sort of way. It's called the cycle of violence. You're in some form of relationship and everything seems to be wonderful, the thing that you have been looking for your whole life. He is the most attentive and caring man you have ever met. Things cannot seem to be any better, and then out of nowhere you're a victim. The violence has taken place. It could have been a push that forced you across the room, a slap across the face, or an intense verbal slashing that left you feeling a little less of yourself. You are in a complete disbelief at what just happened, and hopefully, but not in most cases, are convinced by the actions that just took place that the union is over. Then you receive flowers, or an important card, or he tells you how important and beautiful you are and he cannot live without you. The phone calls will not stop pleading with you to take him back, as most of you do. He continues with all of his tricks, trying to pull the wool over your eyes and make you believe that everything is perfect as you originally had planned and thought. This is called the honeymoon period. He is full of all temporary acts of goodness and eventually broken promises to keep you by his aid. Eventually this wears off, and you begin to notice things slipping back to the way they were before. You feel yourself walking on eggshells in the same way you were. You feel yourself afraid of what will happen next. This is called the tension stage. The waiting period or the build-up of what will lead to the inevitable violence. In whatever form it comes, it is never an ending cycle that will usually increase in frequency, making the honeymoon period shorter and shorter and the level of violence more severe each and every time. The abuser having power and control over the abused is exactly what he or she is looking for, and this can be achieved in many different varieties and forms. If the abused was to look back and think they would realize whatever type of abuse they are or hopefully were experiencing most likely began with emotional abuse. This is a great way for the abuser to make the abused feel less worthy of themselves, putting them down, making them feel as if they do not deserve the good things in life, making the other one feel more superior than the one they are with, or they are not a good parent to their children, making her think that they are crazy. They are breaking them down and making them feel weak. The abuser wants this so that they can have the abused feel like they need them, their rock or someone to lean on. They cannot live or they have nothing without them. This makes them very vulnerable, and that is exactly what they want. In some cases the abuse will stop here, in many other cases it does not, and it goes farther into the other stages of the domestic violence. Once they have abused, convinced they are lesser, they isolate them from family and friends. This way, to have no support system, nobody to lean on, confide in making the abuser the only one that they have. They limit what they watch, read, or where they even grocery shop at, in lots of cases being confined to their own houses. They miss days of work due to the violence, or even forced to quit their jobs. This has resulted in more than 32,000 full-time jobs being lost in the United States. Without having an income, the abuser now has all control over the currency in the relationship, and economic abuse has just taken place. She must ask for money now, or forced to hide any money that she may obtain or earn on the side. Now being abused in one way different from any other does not make you any less of a victim or any less of anything but a crime. However, the last thing anybody wants to hear is of someone being physically abused. 1 out of 3 women have been a victim to physical abuse in their lifetime, and statistics report that only 1/4 of these assaults are only reported to the police, making domestic violence the most chronically unreported crime in the United States. Hearing a story of a once abused living free from domestic violence is a great story to know. However, you will only have a 27% chance of ever hearing one. It takes a tremendous amount of courage and strength to decide to leave an abusive situation. Now remember that the abused is usually cut off from any family, friends, and financial resources to make this process any easier for them or as possible. This is why, in most cases, the abused stays with the relationship, seeing they have no way out. There are abusive shelters that can truly help any abused change their life around. There they will find other women and or men that can relate to their stories and make them feel less alone in this process. They have classes to help rebuild their self-esteem and make them realize they are worth something more than what they have been living. They will teach them how to support themselves again and give therapy to any children who was a witness or victim to the abuse. Boys who witness violence in the home are twice as likely to abuse their own partners and children when they become adults. Now I will show a quick visual aid of a graph that I drew up explaining the cycle of domestic violence. Here I drew a graph of the cycle of domestic violence. I will start here with the violent outbreak phase. The abuser explodes. There is a major destructive act against the victim. This act could be emotional or physical. The victim then may blame herself or himself and may fight back and try to escape. From here it goes to the honeymoon phase, where the abuser pursues the victim, promises to change, sends flowers, cards, letters, says he can't live without him or her, is charming and manipulative. And it comes around to the tension building phase, which I had mentioned earlier. The abuser is edgy, not speaking, slamming doors, breaking things, could be agitated and picking up on everything. The victim is walking on eggshells and tries to keep the peace. And therefore it goes back to the violent outbreak stage, and it just continues and continues. The more times the cycle is repeated, the less time it takes to complete. And as the cycle is repeated, the violence usually increases each and every time. Being a victim to domestic violence crime is a horrible story to tell. But being a victim to a homicide is a heartbreaking to tell nobody ever wants to hear. Every day in the United States, more than 3 women are victims to domestic violence homicide by their boyfriends or husbands. Please, if you know anyone who is suffering, help them before their story turns into a life-threatening statistic.